We should have.
Me too. It was just really like.
I feel we
Come on, Hannah. I saw Paul. Paul, the awesome sub. He's watching. And he had his
It's just like, since the Twilight Club starts putting in like, we're starting out at Shaggy. Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Okay, why don't we get started? So, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all. Just a quick reminder that we're not meeting tomorrow, so enjoy sleeping in a little bit. We are going to take a few minutes at the very end of class today to talk about next steps with the project and where we're going. Just want to remind you that when we come back, we're back in the classroom for a few days, and then we'll probably come back here to catch up on some of the presentations we didn't have time to get to. So this morning, we have the privilege of hearing and talking a little bit with Ms. Erin, who is the Brookline reporter for the Brookline Tab, or the schools reporter for the Brookline Tab?
Editor.
The editor, excuse me, the editor for the Brookline Tab. She works not only in print journalism, but in community print journalism, which are two kind of struggling areas right now. More and more people are getting their news online, and they're getting their news from cable and web and other sources. So she's been...
The new TV that was put in the atrium.
That's right. We have a new TV put in the atrium, and we'll get information from there as well. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about what she does, what her job entails, a little bit about the challenges that community journalism and the Tab in particular face, but also I think she has a unique perspective in that her job is to report what's going on in Brookline, and since we're interested in trying to figure out what challenges Brookline faces in particular, I think she can talk a little bit to that. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to move this out of the way so the camera can catch you.
Oh, sure. If you want me to stand, I can stand too.
Whatever's more comfortable for
Okay.
you.
So hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. As Erin said, my name is Erin Fossey. I'm the editor of the Brookline Tab and Wicked Local Brookline, which is the website with the Tab. I'm not a huge public speaker, so I'm going to keep this short, and that'll be a mercy for you. But ask me as many questions as you want, and I'll try to answer all of them. So, let's see. So I came into journalism kind of, literally I was having, I had graduated from college, and I knew I wanted to go back to grad school, and I was having dinner with a friend, and we were talking about what to do. And she's like, well, what do you like to do? And I said, oh, I like to write. And she said, well, just be a journalist, because that's probably the only way to get paid. She didn't tell me that I wasn't going to get paid a lot, though. That's the problem. But so I went to BU for journalism, and basically ever since I've been in community journalism. I reported for a number of years in Newton and Watertown, and then I became the editor in Watertown, and then I edited Needham and now Brookline. So that's my background. And I don't know, do you want me to get into kind of what I do in terms of like day-to-day stuff? So I would say the division of labor, and it's kind of, a division's kind of a, it's not really the right word because it's all basically to the same end, but I would say we probably spend about 60 to 70% of the time on the website, and then 30 to 40% of the time on the print edition, which comes out once a week. And basically what we do is I have 1.5 reporters. So I have a full-time reporter and then one guy that I share with Newton. And we, they will, on Thursdays usually we talk about what we're going to try to do for the week, although that changes every week, so it's kind of more of a rough sketch. But most of the stories, because they're out in Brookline reporting every day, most of the stories they pitch to me. sometimes I'll pitch them to them, and we figure out mostly what we're going to do, barring breaking news, which always happens. And then we try to post online. My goal is to update the website between 6 and 7 times a day, between like the main site, and then we have a blog that I try to update a few times a week at least. Although I'd like to do more, but that's tough. And let's see. So the paper the actual print edition gets put together on Tuesday nights. Well, from Monday night till Wednesday morning is when the paper's getting put together. And but generally speaking, because we're reporting throughout the week and it's going up online as soon as possible, what the papers have become are more or less like digests of what's gone on in the week. You know, when I first started out, we had a website, but it wasn't like, this was the late 90s, so it was like somebody took the stories and threw them up online, and they just sat there for a week. So really, you know, we were only just reporting for the paper, and that, you know, that meant that like if there was a fire, we may or may not run out to it, because, you know, if it was like on a Friday and the paper was coming out on a Thursday, it was going to be so old by then anyway. You know, there was no point in actually going down to the scene when all we would be doing was a follow-up story anyway at that point. So, but now, because, you know, we have to get something on the web as soon as possible, you know, we'll tweet it, we'll throw something up on Facebook, we'll run out to the fire, we'll get, you know, we'll get as much as we can up as fast as we can, and then flesh it out as the day goes on, which is, you know, how everyone does it these days. But and I think that's the problems. I shouldn't say problems. The issues with the web have been entirely, in my opinion, economic. I think in terms of the quality of the news and what we're doing and what people are getting, some of that's gone downhill, but I think the net benefits outweigh the problems. So, like for instance, I don't even know where to begin with this. So it's a lot harder to make money on the web. Here's a problem in a nutshell. We can charge a whole lot more for a print ad than we can for a web ad. So even though, you know, circulation, not just at the Tab or at Gatehouse Media, which is our parent company, but like across the board, pretty much across the industry, circulation for print newspapers is dropping. And circulation or online readership is growing, but because even in this day and age, you can't charge as much for an online ad as you can for a print ad, the economics don't work. So, so that's why, you know, a lot of companies like ours, you know, still have a print edition. I mean, I think in Brookline, because the tabs always come free to their homes, people are, you know, kind of attached and used to getting a paper. So I think even if we could get rid of the paper, we wouldn't, because it's kind of you know, I think it's valued in Brookline in ways that in some other communities it might not be. But you know, I think in a lot of cases, even though we have far more readership, there are some papers in like the more urban areas where readership online far outstrips circulation numbers, both subscription and single copy sales. But you need those papers to make money, even though the ads are dropping. So, and that's kind of the scary thing, is because, you know, the one thing that, well, not the one thing, but, you know, the biggest source of our income is plummeting, and yet we can't get the other side of it to increase fast enough to kind of balance everything out. And let's see, what else? Go ahead.
Do you have a sense of how many people are getting the tab?
Getting the physical tab?
Yeah. It's just automatically delivered to every person's home?
It used to be, or actually I don't know if it ever was in Brookline. I think it's automatically delivered to most households.
Okay.
There are some like large apartment buildings and stuff where they probably don't deliver anymore, or they might just drop off like 10 copies for a 35 unit building, So it's not like every single resident of Brookline gets a tab for free. But, well, they could go to the, it's given away for free at like newsstands and boxes and stuff. But it's not delivered to every household anymore. But I think it is the majority. I don't know the circulation numbers off the top of my head, but it's like maybe like 20,000, something like that. I don't know.
And what percentage of production costs do you think are covered by the ads in the printed paper?
I don't know specifically for the tab. I know traditionally in the industry, it's always been 80-20. 80% of revenue comes from ads and 20% comes from subscription and sales. The New York Times has actually managed to flip that. Well, I don't know if they flipped it, but with their paywall system now, they're actually making more money off of subscriptions than they are of ads, which is remarkable. But I don't know exactly like.
Do you feel like it's at least close to breaking even?
I mean, it must. We're still around, so I mean, it must be, And well, with the tab, we've never made any money off of subscription because it's a free paper.
Right.
So, but we're such a big company, and it's not like it's every paper for itself. It's kind of, it all goes into one pot. So in terms of how one paper does versus another, I'm not really sure. Like if you were to look at each title individually, I'm sure it would be slightly different in every case. But I think the other things that we've, like a lot of media companies, we've diversified in terms of doing things like direct advertising and like Groupon type things online and other sources of revenue to try to make up for what's been lost in direct advertising. We also, it's not just the print ads that you see in the paper or online for whatever, for puppet theater, showplace theater. It's like the classifieds have been plummeting for years because of Craigslist, but there's also legal ads, which interestingly I think during the recession actually went up because of foreclosures and the like, which is sad but true. And what else? Well, that's basically it. Legal, classified, and display ads. So.
I'm curious, how many of you guys read the tab, the physical tab? Most everyone.
Really?
How many of you have gone to the website, the tab website?
I'll click on the link.
Yeah.
So you're getting exposure.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. And I'm actually surprised because you guys are so young. So that's what we like to see. That's. How many do any of you follow the tab on Twitter or Facebook? No? Okay.
Yeah.
No. Does anyone?
Just a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How much does like an ad cost in paper, and then how much does an online ad cost?
I don't know. I wish I knew that. They keep us pretty separate from the ad department, editorial, and it's like a church state thing. So I don't know. I think that I think someone told me once, and don't quote me on this because I'm not positive, but I think that like a half page, either a half page or a full page ad was like, I think it was a half page ad is like $1,000 in the paper. I don't know. I don't have any idea what the online ads are like, but I know it's like it's less than half than that. I don't know. Yep.
What do you think is going to happen to the paper in the next like 5 to 10 years? Do you think it's like going to be gone and it's going to be all online?
I don't know. It's an excellent question. That's one I've asked myself a lot. They've been predicting that papers are going to go away for 10 to 15 years, and they haven't yet. On the other hand, I think if they could probably figure out a way to make enough money just online, they would do that. I mean, there's a lot more overhead in terms of putting out a newspaper than there is maintaining a website. So I don't know. But on the other hand, like in places like Brookline and Newton, where the tab has been coming to people's homes for 30, 40 years. I don't even know how old it is now. But, I think there's kind of a nostalgia thing, too, that they would be loath to get rid of. But, and I think there'll be a lot fewer, and just in general, in the industry, there'll be a lot fewer newspapers. And the ones that do exist will be, I think, more niche things rather than, just general newspapers. So that's just a guess, but.
I'm wondering what you guys think. When you're 10 years older and you have the option of subscribing to a paper which would cost money, do you see yourself doing that, or do you see yourself getting news online?
My problem with printed papers is when they come often, you can't get through the whole thing before the next one comes, so then it starts to be sort of a waste. But if it was a weekly thing,
But you can't. But a daily paper you can't.
I just can't get through all of it.
Actually, I don't know if it's weekly versus daily, but community journalism has been doing better. I mean, it's all been doing poorly, but the more local the news, the better it's been doing than the big metro dailies for the most part. So.
Yeah. Do you find that more people subscribe to the active paper or the online? I can't remember what you said.
Well, in Brookline, it just comes for free, so you don't even have to subscribe. You don't even have to ask for it. So it's kind of hard. In Brookline, it's probably roughly even, I would say. But in some of our towns like Wellesley and Somerville and Cambridge, they have to pay for the paper. And in Wellesley's kind of a freak. The Wellesley townsman is 100 and something years old, and people in that town love it, and they will pay a lot of money to get it. So in Wellesley, I don't know exactly what the ratio is, but a lot of people read that paper. In Cambridge and Somerville, their circulation is not that high, but their online readership is huge. So.
Do you think it's more productive to ship out the papers every morning or to post online?
Productive in terms of finding.
Getting out the information.
Oh, online. I mean, online's just the fastest and easiest way to get information to people. I mean, to people who are on the web, But yeah, not everyone's on the web, and it's a lot of older readers who still want to get the paper every morning or every week. You'd be surprised though that how many people don't. I'm surprised at how many people don't know that we have a website. You know what I mean? And I think part of the problem is that the name of our paper and the name of our website are different. But I often wonder if we would have more online readership if it was called the same thing that the paper is called. But.
Why isn't it the same?
I don't. Oh well, I do kind of know. It's because they wanted to. The company wanted to kind of have a regional brand, so they named them all because all the papers had different names. There was the Brookline Tab and the Needham Times and the Wellesley Townsman, and they all had different names. But they wanted the online brand to be this one thing, so they called it all Wicked Local, blank Brookline, Wicked Local Newton, Wicked Local Cambridge. So. And I'm sure it made sense to them. Maybe that was the right decision, but I don't think in terms of name recognition, especially since they never did any big ad campaigns when they launched these sites. So I don't know. Yeah.
When the Brookline tab decides to make the newspaper free
Mm-hmm.
for the whole Brookline, how do you balance whether you want people to have easy access to news and having a higher revenue?
That's a good question.
Because the issue is that you guys aren't generating enough.
Yeah.
At this rate, enough revenue
Yeah.
because of the increase.
Yeah,
How do
well-
you balance whether, because the whole point of anyone who works in the newspaper is that they want to get the good news
Right.
as fast as possible to the people.
Right. Well, let me back up and say when I say that we can't. I'm not talking specifically about the tab. I'm talking about newspapers in general not
Okay.
being able to. So.
So then I imagine.
Yeah. So the decision, I think the tab, if I'm not mistaken, I obviously haven't been around for its whole history, it has always been free. And the calculation that's always made when you decide to take a paper free is, so when you sell ads, you sell it based on circulation. So obviously, if you're going to give a paper out to everybody in a town or a city, your circulation is going to be higher than if you charge people for it. But on the other hand, if people are going to pay for a paper, you're pretty sure they're going to actually look at it. Whereas if you just are giving away a paper, half those papers could sit at the end of the driveway until the following week when they throw it in the recycling bin. You know what I mean? So, it's kind of, you're kind of taking a bet that the product is going to be looked at by enough eyeballs to, and advertisers know this. They know that, just because you show me a circulation number of 60,000, that doesn't mean that 60,000 people necessarily are going to be looking at it. But if 60,000 people are paying for it, there's a much greater chance that all of them are going to be looking at it. So how they came to that decision in Brookline, I don't know. I wasn't around. I'm guessing that they thought that, Brookline is, it's a community that is, pretty engaged, and is going to want to. It's going to actually care about what's going on and want to look at this paper, whether or not it's free or they pay for it. So it was also, the tab was also a very different paper when they launched it than it is now. Now it's kind of like an all-purpose, community newspaper. When it was launched, it was more of an alternative weekly, like the Phoenix, but only for Brookline. So, yeah.
And when was it originated?
The 70s. I don't know the exact year. Yeah.
How can you run a paper with 2.5 people? And that's just when I think about like coverage and different things happening, and I mean, our high school paper has anyone on the paper here?
A lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
And they come out every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, once a month.
They're
Yeah.
like night and day. They're all of them.
So how do you?
Well, when I say we, when you guys put out a paper, you probably have what? You have reporters, you have editors, you have photographers, you probably have people that like lay it out. You have people that like print. Yeah, you do everything from from soup to nuts. Whereas when I say we have 2.5 people, we have 2.5 people producing editorial content, meaning stories, basically. But we have in Framingham, we have a team of paginators that actually lay it out. And they don't work, there's not like a Brookline tab paginator or Brookline tab paginators. It's like a group of paginators who kind of, we have, how many papers do we have now? I think in New England we have like 100, I'm just pulling this number out of thin air, like 170, 100, we have a ton of papers, and they're all produced in Framingham, and so it's kind of, and the deadlines are spread out from like Tuesday night to Friday or Thursday afternoon, and they have to crank out like all these papers in that span of time every week. So it's kind of, it's a bit of an assembly line kind of system. It's not, and just between you, they work really hard, and I don't mean to badmouth them at all, but just between you and me, like the papers don't look as great as they used to, just because just the volume that they're doing is just too much. So, we don't have a sports staff like some papers. We have a freelancer for that. We have, and we, a lot of content is submitted from readers. A lot of photos, a lot of stories generally we do ourselves, but things like, just little like briefs and short write-ups and stuff, a lot of those are submitted to us by readers. So, yeah.
How do you go, I know this is a really general question, but how do you go about finding a piece of news? Do you have a connection with the police department? And
Yeah.
your special relationships where you, I don't know, well, you do a favor for them and they tell you the news?
We try not to do we try not to get into favors, but yeah. There's a number of ways that we can get news stories. Some of them, the simplest way is, and this usually just works with, the simplest way is if someone pitches us a story. Like in the case of features, it's usually somebody in the community or a PR person says, "Oh, I know this great story, blah blah blah." In the case of like harder investigative stuff, it's someone tips you off to something, and then you have to like spend some time checking it out because you don't know if it's legit or not. Sometimes we get story ideas like, we cover the selectmen meetings and the school committee meetings, and then sometimes we'll other meetings if there's something important going on. But we just do that basically so that there's somebody there watching over the government. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like every week there's a blockbuster story coming out as selectmen or especially school committee, you know. Well, and but sometimes you'll get a story like an idea. Someone will say something in passing, and you'll be like, you know, oh, you know that could make a story if I fleshed it out a little more. So then you'll do some digging there.
Are there things that you could do if you had a larger reporting staff?
Oh yeah. We would do a lot more. I would personally I would love to do more like series. I like to look at issues in the town and kind of like so one of the biggest things that's going on right now in Brookline is the enrollment spike in the schools and how that's affecting everything from building to the budget to it's I don't know if you guys know this, but enrollment has gone up. It's like this year's kindergarten class is the biggest in like ever. It's like 600 and something kids, and it's just it's just growing and growing and growing. And they need to figure out what to do with all these kids. And I would like to do a story on I would like to look at what's behind this. And obviously Brookline's a desirable town with a great school system. So I mean that's at the base, that's what's behind it. But why now and why so much? And what's actually going on? And there are other things. We talk about stories all the time that we're like, oh, we should really do that. And it just the day-to-day stuff just gets in the way a lot of times. So I would like to do more multimedia stuff. We do a little bit of that, but I would like to do more than just stick a camera in someone's face and have them talk for 30 seconds, and you know what I mean. Like I would like to do something a little more creative with that.
And that's just a limitation of the budget. Is that what?
Well, our equipment's not terrific, but we could. I mean, we have cameras and we have editing software and stuff. We could do it. It's just it's more of a constraint of time. It takes a long time to edit a really good video. It doesn't take very long to just throw something up and but.
I'm wondering, you said you've worked for several of the papers.
Yep.
I'm wondering if any of the papers have considered using students in local high schools as part of the staff.
Well, we've had interns from some. I don't know if the Brookline tab's ever had an intern from high school. I'm trying to think, but I know that some of the papers do take interns. In terms of like, I think it's been tried, and I think to varying levels of success. I think the problem is, we're out in this office park in Needham, so just logistically, it's not always that easy, and also students are busy being students, and that's their first priority, and our priority is getting stuff out on deadline. So sometimes that can be tricky, but I definitely think there's opportunities there, for that sort of thing.
Do you guys think people would take that up?
I think so.
Yeah. Like what guys, if you guys could work for the tab or any newspaper, what would you want to do, like for a project or whatever?
See, that's what's hard. Like, are we like capable of gathering information? I wouldn't think so. Or like
Why not?
writing information?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why not?
I wouldn't trust a student. I have to meet a deadline, and it has to be good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean that's what we're here
Do it
for, is to
myself.
make sure. Yeah.
You just need a bigger staff.
I mean, there's nothing that we can do that you can't do in terms of. I mean, we have more experience, and we've been doing it longer, so we can do it faster and cleaner than you can on the first pass. But there's nothing, we don't have any special powers that you don't have in terms of getting public information. And
But I think that's true, because I'd be an intern and need to do something that's like sort of anyone could do. Be helpful,
yeah.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. We do get a lot of college interns, and a lot of them are really good. But it's hard. A lot of what we need is just somebody to pick up some of the slack, and in terms of reporting, and usually, you know, the students are good enough that it's totally worth it, you know, for everyone involved. Like, they get something out of it by covering, you know, a good story, and we get something out of it by getting a story that's not too much heavy lifting in terms of editing. You know, occasionally there are students that aren't as far along in their skill set, and then, you know, and then you spend more time rewriting their story than you should have just gone out and done it yourself. But, you know, I think, you know, it would take some thinking, but I think there probably are projects that, you know, that would benefit everybody, that would be kind of cool to work on, you know. I do. Yeah.
You were talking about like multimedia earlier.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you had any thoughts about doing collaboration between the TAB and BATV, because it seems to me that BATV has very good like multimedia capabilities, but not a lot of reach.
Yeah.
And you guys have a lot of reach, but not multimedia capabilities.
Yeah, no, that's something that we had talked about in the past. There were some technological issues that I remember being, in terms of like, you know, our CMS, the content management system we use to run the websites, it's temperamental and not very open to a lot of it. I mean, I would love to talk with them again and see if anything's changed, and if there's, you know, but I think there was an issue with a lot of like the video that VATV produced we couldn't run on our sites. So, but I think in theory that's an awesome idea, and it's something that we've actually thought about. So,
Could you talk a little bit about, so as someone who has eyes on Brookline, what kinds of problems are you seeing or challenges? You mentioned the enrollment. There's some
That's,
about that.
yeah.
What kinds of things are you seeing?
you know, I mean, development's always an issue in Brookline, sporadic. I mean, here and there. It's not like a, you know, all-encompassing issue, but you know, anytime a Hancock Village, anytime a big development comes on the radar, I think, I don't know. I actually, I was thinking so much about that. I hadn't thought about this one so much before I came, so I'm kind of working off the cuff here. I should know this off the top of my head, but.
Well, I'm just trying to think about what kinds of stories have been in the tab recently.
Yeah, well, it's been a lot of crime recently, which I think, you know, the street robberies in North Brookline, I think they got a lot of attention and caused a lot of anxiety because some guy got stabbed, you know, and you know, it was a little more hardcore than normal, but you know, muggings happen in that area quite frequently, like, you know, I would say at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. So I don't think it's necessarily like this crime wave. It's just that it happened to be kind of especially brutal these last few times. Let's see, what else has been in the tab? Pulling out of Norfolk County. That's sexy, right? Pulling out of Norfolk County. Brookline is part of Norfolk. There are very few county. Massachusetts did away with most of its county government back in the late 90s, but a few counties remain, Norfolk being one of them. So Brookline's part of Norfolk County, and they pay these fees. And most of the fees go towards their legacy fees, so like people who used to work for the county, it's retirement, pensions, that sort of thing. But because Brookline, I think it has to do with property assessment. Brookline, for whatever reason, has to pay more than anyone else in Brookline, even though they don't use any services of Norfolk County. They don't use the animal control. They don't use veteran services. Brookline has its own veteran services. So it's basically paying all this money for nothing. It's not nothing because they're paying for the employees that used to provide services. But so they want to actually, they want to pull out of the county because it's a waste of money for them. And the state needs to sign off on that. Let's see. God, I'm Totally blanking. What is on my front page this week? Snow. I don't know. Well, what do you guys think are the issues in Brookline?
Wrestling's out of the Olympics.
Yeah.
How slow the snow removal was?
Slappy from
So yeah.
Didn't get around to where I live until Tuesday, so that says it all.
Where do you live?
Right next to the Brook House, so they didn't get around here to
Till
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't get around.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. Yeah. I live in Waltham. Not to make excuses for Brookline, but Brookline did a lot better than Waltham did for snow removal. But yeah, I've been hearing a lot of complaints actually. Not so much the roads, but businesses not shoveling their sidewalks, which they're required to. Have you guys been walking around in?
And homes. Just
And homes, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like nobody enforces them.
Yeah.
You're forced to walk on the street where the cars are
Which
going.
policeman
Yeah.
is going to give you a ticket for not shoveling your snow yet?
Yeah.
Because some people don't shovel because, oh, they want to wait, so then it can melt a little and they
Mhm.
can do, or
What they do
whatever
is, like,
excuse,
Get it both to the middle and where the property line is, they'll like stack it all the way up so
Yeah.
you can walk around the street.
Yeah.
regardless, like,
Yeah. I know.
almost got hit.
Also, turkeys were an issue for a while.
Turkeys. Oh, how could I have forgotten about turkeys? That's ridiculous. Turkeys, huge. Yeah. They're around here, right? You guys ever?
I always see them over my Spanish class, they're always like, this little area.
Do they have little switchblades? Are they?
I actually had a friend who got stopped on his way to school by turkeys.
Really?
So he had to take the long way around just because the turkeys would bunch.
They wouldn't leave. They like stood their ground.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did they follow him?
You can't
No.
follow them or else they'll
They're not. They're rough. They really are.
take you down.
They picked at car tires, they passed by on a bike once. One started chasing. Top gear! Yeah. Top gear!
What would you say, a weekly paper is different from a daily paper. What would you say that the role of the weekly paper is? Like, what is it that you guys are trying to accomplish?
Well, I think what we're trying to accomplish is to provide some sense of community in terms of, you know, this is what's going on in your neighborhoods, your homes, and to give, you know, kind of a sense of what the city, the town's all about. That's not any different though than, I mean, you didn't ask this, but it's, you know, what we're doing online and what we're doing in the paper is the same thing. The paper is kind of, you know, I don't mean to downplay the paper because I think it's amazing that Brookline still has a weekly paper and that, you know, people still hopefully want to read it. And I actually, like, I enjoy putting it out, and it's really cool for me to have a tangible piece of my work in my hands every week. But that said, in terms of what goes into the tab, it's, you know, because we devote so much time to online, you know, and I think there are in many ways more opportunities to build community online than there are in print anyway. So the print's kind of like I said, it's like a digest, you know, of this is what happened this week. This is what we had on our website this week. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we'll rewrite stuff for the print edition if it's been, you know, if it's been a while and the story needs to be moved forward. But
One of the things I think that the school paper struggles with, say if it comes out once a month or even every 2 weeks, most of the news stories, we don't have. They have a website, but they don't really use it that much. We don't necessarily have a formal network where information is shared. Yet, I would bet most of you guys know the information before it hits the tab, the Sagamore.
Yep.
Once it's in the Sagamore, it's probably been around for 2 weeks.
right, and that's the same issue we have. Yeah.
I'm like curious, but they have to
So they have more.
Yeah.
So you usually pick up a lot.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I have a question. Why is it that advertisements on, well, first of all, why, how many times a week? You said that you update it 6 to 7 times a day.
That's my goal, yeah. Some days it's more, some days it's less, yeah.
So you have like a daily online paper and a weekly paper at the same time. So is it because it's daily that the ads are cheaper?
No, it's because it's online that the ads are cheaper, and they don't.
So is there a certain regulation for the price for online ads?
I don't know if it's regulation. I think it's dictated by the market, but online, even though more eyeballs may be looking at something online, an online ad is not as
Big.
It's not as big. It's not as
long.
right. It doesn't stay there. It's not on the page there for the entire week, looking at you and not going anywhere. Online ads rotate because there's only so much space you can fit on a computer screen, so that the ads will rotate as opposed to just stay there. You know what I mean? So they're just not in front of people for as long as a print ad would be in front of people, even though more people are looking at it. Yeah.
Do you think not living in Brookline has influenced your writing about, or influenced the stories that you pitch? Because
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
do most people live in Brookline, or is it kind of from wherever? And then
None of my staff now live. Here's where I get out the violin. Most community journalists can't afford to live in Brookline or Newton or Wellesley, although the Wellesley Townsman editor does live in Wellesley. But so I think it does influence. I don't know how much not living in Brookline influences our editorial decisions versus just kind of who we are, and I don't know how much that has to do with where we live. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
I think if we lived in Brookline, we would probably be getting stories that we're not getting because we're here all the time, and that's a shame. And I think I might have different perspectives on things. I would probably write more editorials if I lived in Brookline, because I would be more personally invested in stuff, But yeah, I think there is a difference. I think we try to figure out what it is that Brookline is interested in and give them that. But
So how much do you think you influence how much your personality and your opinions influence the paper? Is that something that every writer struggles with for a newspaper?
Yeah.
So how do you think it pulls on you? Or the people you work with as well.
Right. Yeah.
You said you had a freelance. You see the freelance. I don't know if he's less experienced, that he or she has to or when you first began.
Right.
Was it hard to keep your opinion out, or maybe you had to put your opinion in, or whatever?
I mean, I don't. There's no such thing as complete objectivity. You know that. It's not that hard to keep your opinion out of your writing in terms of stylistically. It can be hard to kind of abandon your own perspectives when you're deciding, what stories. I think probably the biggest place where your own opinions and that sort of thing comes in is what you decide to cover, more so than the actual coverage of the story once you cover it. I think it's very easy, even if you believe very strongly about something, it's very easy to get as many sides as possible and throw them into the article. I don't think that's hard. Although but it's funny. A lot of times we'll write a story that I think is perfectly balanced, and we'll get a complaint that you gave that story to this. Yeah. It's so I think what we read as the people reporting the news and what the readers read as the people who are living the news or affected by the news is sometimes very different, and you don't see it coming a lot of times.
How about as an editorial writer? Do you feel like your editorials have affected policy or practice in the town?
I don't. And this goes back to your question about living in Brookline. I don't like to write editorials unless I feel, well, A, that I know what I'm talking about, and B, I feel I actually have an opinion. Like, I don't like to write an editorial as, like, you know, an intellectual exercise, just because it, and a lot of times, probably because I don't live in Brookline, I don't often have strong opinions about a lot of things. So, you know, I'm not writing an editorial every single week, and so I think, you know, in the aggregate, I'm personally not affecting anything, you know. So, but you know, there have been issues that I felt very strongly about, and whether or not those editorials made a difference, I have no way of gauging. You know, I tend to think that probably not a lot, you know, but.
I got the answer for David about the cost. This is just an advertising website, and it says, this isn't for the tab per se, but it says that for a month of ads online, it costs about $50.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas a print ad could cost $100 for one shot. And the logic, at least they're saying here, is that for an online ad, lots of people have ad blocking software, so that you may not even see it.
Mm-hmm.
And you tend to stay on a web page for a few seconds, whereas to read, there are several stories on a page where there would be a printed ad, so your eyes would be on the ad for longer. That was the rationalization, or the rationale.
So in the future, do you think that soon they're going to require that you pay to read the news? So that, because you have to generate
Money somehow, right? Or else it's going to go away. Yeah.
That's what you think?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, the New York Times did it, and they've actually, from what I've read, have been really successful. I think the Globe's been less successful with their paywall. But the New York Times is kind of it's not a great example. You know what I mean? It's a prestige brand. You know, we couldn't. I don't see any way that the Brookline tab could get away with charging online, because we're not even charging for the print edition. You know what I mean? Like, no one's. I mean, I could be wrong, and you know, in 2 years you could see them trying it, but there's going to have to be, you know, either paywalls or, you know, going to more of a nonprofit model like NPR does, where you know, basically just beg your readers for money. But something's got to change, because and the market's not going to suddenly decide that we can charge, you know, $500 for online ads instead of $50. That's not going to happen. So, yep.
Wouldn't the problem really be sort of people and their mentality around ads online? Whereas nowadays, most people see ads as pure annoyance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Make ads more friendly. You know, make them more interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of the ads that made people go as far as install ad blocking software were ones that were really obtrusive, that would slide across the screen, wouldn't go away until you click something, or pop under the window,
Well, I think
mess around with JavaScript and made your browser window.
yeah.
And those are the ones that cause all this.
Right. Yeah, and I will freely admit some of the ads on our sites are, you know, really annoying. But I think that's why a lot of papers are looking at different revenue streams and different revenue methods, because I don't think online ads are. I mean, I'm not a visionary in the area of online ads, but I don't see a way that they're ever going to get really less annoying, or anyone's going to want to watch them more.
That's a real problem, though, because I have a hard time imagining people paying for most news.
Yeah.
You know, people will pay for the New York Times because it's got status, and people feel like they need to read it. Maybe the Wall Street Journal.
Mm-hmm.
But
People pay for ESPN. That is.
ESPN though.
Yeah. Right.
But they have proprietary content. Like,
Right.
no one else can broadcast that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Mr. Fisher. Well, to be fair, I think this is quote Mr. Grant. If you read the Wall Street Journal, it makes you look smart.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. You know, you're right, and you know, people will. people will pay for. The other thing is that news is so expendable and fleeting. Like people will download a song or a movie, or an app or a video game, but because those are things that they can have forever. You know what I mean? But no one's going to download and pay for a news story because you read it once and it's gone. You know. So. You know, and this is why we are where we are, you know, because no one can figure this out, or at least no one has yet. So.
What do you think about maybe like news switching to like media, like completely media, like having videos, like video, it's like video reporting, and then that could be like video ads.
Video ads.
Because I know like YouTube's like taking over, and they started like putting ads on their stuff, and they're making a lot of money.
AdBlocks, man.
Yeah, they're making a lot of money off of that. So.
Yeah.
You could go Hulu though, because like the way Hulu has it set up is like you can't watch their videos and get any of the information unless you take like pause ad block or whatever.
Yeah.
You could try that.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. That is a good thing. But that, you know, that's taking away. Are you talking about strictly video or
Like
video in addition to?
well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because like maybe like the reporting that's done like in an article that could just be like said out loud with like videos like a backdrop.
Mhm.
Maybe it seems like that's the direction that news is going in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, yeah. You could go to a broadcast format, but then, you know, and this is the writer in me talking. Like, where does that leave? Where does that leave narrative journalism? Because, you know, if you only offer, you know, these little broadcast videos of news, either, well, one of two things is going to happen. Either you just offer the news and writing goes away, or you offer both as an option and people read because they don't have to sit through the ads. Although maybe they won't. Maybe they'd rather sit through the ads than actually read a story, which is depressing, but possibly true. I don't know.
Every time I watch a video on YouTube, like every 2 or 3, I have to go through a 30-second commercial. Or like a 5-minute one that you can skip after 10 seconds.
Which I don't understand the point of, because a lot of times you don't even know what the commercial was for. Yeah.
So I think that
Sometimes if
I watched one once.
So, do you think it'd be possible? I don't know. I haven't like had a conversation with you and your writer about the possibilities. But what about like a 30-second video before you watch any piece of news or read any piece of news? Not even 30. It could be like 15. It's an advertisement, like a video advertisement, like YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
Because what I imagine, like the ads on your website, I've never been on your website, would be, or like on the side, like flashing.
Yeah, there's a strip down the side, there's a strip across the top. There's also a bunch of pop-ups that, if you don't block, or litter your screen.
Isn't it also based on like your search engine?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, these are all good ideas. Yep.
You thought about like the Brookline tab is relatively small compared to other newspapers, and it really, I think, it builds community. And instead of using ads and stuff, if you guys thought of doing any sort of like a promotional event or anything that, for example, I know the Brookline tab, a lot of older people read it, and if they went online and began reading the electronic version, I don't know if they would like having the ads there, or if they would just stop reading the tab because of these ads. So have you thought about maybe doing something else in like a more social way to kind of boost the amount of readers that
So have like a meet the tab events and stuff, or
maybe?
yeah. We have thought of doing that, not so much to boost readers, although that's a good thought. Mostly just to kind of get feedback and to, you know, answer questions. And I haven't done one in Brookline. I've done them in other communities, and no one usually shows up. But which is fine. I get coffee, so it's cool. But yeah, it's not a bad idea. We do like. Brookline had Brookline Day this year, which is the first time they did it. And we had a booth there, and you know, a lot of people came up and talked to me. what they came up and talked to me about was circulation issues, which I couldn't really, I just took their name and number, but I couldn't really help them with. But, you know, I think, you know, I would love to have some sort of event or some forum where people could come and tell me like kind of what they would like to see in the paper, you know, and or what it is that they like or dislike about the tab and that sort of thing. Those are hard to do. I mean, they've been done, but they're hard to do. It's just hard to get people to leave their house for, you know, to talk to a stranger about stuff.
How's the existence of Patch affecting you guys?
Financially, I don't know. You know, I know that they've done a good job of, you know, kind of building, especially on Twitter, a big social media presence. They recently, the Brookline editor left. He went to, I think, Needham, and they haven't replaced, I don't think, with a designated Brookline editor. I think they wrapped Brookline into, this is what I understand, I could be wrong, but they wrapped Brookline into like Kenmore and something else. Fenway, I think. So they don't have offices like we do. So they kind of just work out of coffee shops in towns. And for that reason, they'll beat us to a lot of crime stuff. But what they do is a little different. I think they're really trying to aim more for like an online. I don't even know how to describe it. They're less about producing traditional journalism and more about, you know, a lot more reader submitted stuff, which is great. You know, we do reader submitted stuff too. We're doing, you know, we did a send us your pet photos thing this week, and people. I'm really surprised at how many people send in photos of their pets. People love their pets. It's crazy. But you know, they do a lot of, and I think their relationship with their advertisers is different than our relationship with our advertisers. So, so to answer your question, I think you know, it's been good to have somebody out there to worry about in terms of like, especially police and fire stuff. But you know, I don't know in terms of the revenue or anything if they've left a dent or not. You know, I don't think. I know that their growth has slowed a lot since when they launched, and they're kind of contracting in terms of, you know, that's all I know. But I don't know details or anything like that.
So we have time for one more question, and then I need to talk to them for a minute or two about next steps. Anyone have a final question they'd like to ask? There we go.
Yep.
What do you have? What do you enjoy more? Writing about positive stories or negative stories?
Oh.
Negative one.
No, well, it depends on what you mean by negative.
Tragic things.
No one likes to write about tragic things. Like,
Maybe it's good writing. I don't know.
yeah, I mean it is. It is good writing practice. I don't think anyone enjoys it. It's cool to do a story that like exposes some kind of, you know, problem or something which could be construed as negative, but it actually, you know, it serves a purpose. You know, but you know, everyone likes a good story, and everyone wants to feel good. So, I mean, I guess it would. There aren't, and you're talking to the editor, so I don't write on a day-to-day basis anymore. But you know, when I did, I can say that probably my least favorite things to write was when like someone's kid died. You know what I mean? And you had to go talk to their parents. Like that was just awful. You know, and my favorite thing to write were like issue stories where you kind of like looked at an issue from a bunch of different angles and kind of looked at, kind of like what you're doing with this class is like, you know, trying to solve problems with.
find those issues? Like, how do you how do you guys personally, the team, like, go about trying to solve those problems?
Well, I mean, it's not so much our job to solve the problems, I guess, as just to show what the problems are and to shed light on them. So, and it's kind of good in that respect. Like the pressure's off us. Like once we get the information out there and shine light on the issue, it's kind of up to someone else to solve it. But you know, it's a lot of fun to look at. Does anyone watch The Wire? Oh, you should. You really should. It's an old show. It's off the air, but you should watch it. You know, the show. At its basic, it's like a cop show, but it actually it's a show about Baltimore and about kind of the issues that plague Baltimore and kind of how they all interconnect, and how, you know, the cops and the problems that the police have are reflected, are basically the same problems that the drug gangs have, and also just kind of I'm explaining this poorly, but, you know, the intricate fabric of a city and how the different factions and aspects of it relate and kind of work together and work against each other. That made no sense, but just watch the show. It's good. But my point is that, you know, that's kind of like when you look at it, one of these stories, you kind of, it's the same thing. Like you look at an issue like growing enrollment, and, you know, and you look at all the different factors that could be entering into it, and you talk to people about what they think the problem is. You talk to other communities that have dealt with similar things and how they got around it, and you kind of approach it from as many different angles as you can and try to create some sort of picture. And you're never going to create the entire picture, but you're going to create some sort of representation of what's going on that maybe somebody will look at and get an idea from, I guess. Although in Brookline it's hard because there's like a task force for everything, so they've already got it covered. But that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me.
We just have 2 minutes here before we run out. Let me just tell you where you should be and what you need to do next. We didn't get through all the presentations because of the snow, and we will catch up with them when we come back. You have sort of 2 things going at once. On the one hand, you're going to need time to think this through and figure out which topic, which issue, which problem is interesting to you. And that's going to take a little bit of time. At the same time, you have a cycle that's going much more quickly, which is the reading that you need to do. So I want to be really clear. The reading that you'll do is all for background. Probably when you write your papers, while you may make some reference to the books you've been reading, most of what you'll be writing about will be the people that you interview, the people you talk to, the studies that you do, what you find out locally, which you're not going to find in these books. The reading is a school requirement. The reading is a class requirement because it's a school requirement, but it may or may not connect with the paper that you actually write. For that reason, you want to get going on the reading as quickly as you can without feeling like whatever you're reading has to be directly, explicitly, tightly tied to the actual writing you're doing. The first reading deadline we have is the 1st of March, which is about a week after you come back from vacation. So you want to get started with that. But you don't need to feel like the issue that you're reading about in the book is the one you're committing your whole project to. Okay, so if you read your 2 books and decide, you know what, I've read 2 books about immigration, but I'm really much more interested in energy, that's okay. Okay, that's okay. I want to be clear about that because I'm more interested in you guys digging into your papers than necessarily committing to something right away. Okay? So I'm going to be a little bit fast and loose with the connection between, very fast and loose, between the connection between the reading that you need to do and the topic. You want to walk away tomorrow before you go away for vacation with a book in your hands. The librarians are on the ready to help us out. I can help you guys out, but you don't want to come back from vacation having done no reading at all. Okay? I need to let you go because I know you need to get back to the main building, but I'll be around if you want to talk. I will not see you tomorrow. There's no class tomorrow. You don't need to check in. Have a great vacation.
So what do we do with the book? Because I already started this book about the brain.
The assignment is up on the nib, which is connected to Canvas.
Perfect.
Isn't tomorrow BDE, or is there a new schedule?
I think it's just regular. It's a regular Friday schedule.
Don't we have class tomorrow?
We are supposed to have class tomorrow. I can't be there because I have to be someplace else. Rather than having you come in and just
Okay.
having a sub right before vacation.
All right. Also, I was thinking about tapping, maybe looking at hunger in Brookline instead of. Do you think that is that like a?
Was that our class yesterday that met with, or 2 days ago that met with Renee Feuerman, the Brookline food pantry person?
I don't think so.
Was that
Do you remember
Seabuck?
that? I don't remember
Oh,
that.
Seabuck. She's really terrific.
Okay, I'll look her up on. She's on the Ning, right? She's on our list.
It's on
of,
the list, and I have her email address. If you send me an email, I'll send it to you. She's
Okay.
looking for people,
Awesome.
and she's really terrific. She knows. She came to the class. She's got a lot of
Yeah,
great
that's great.
ideas. Good.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
And my question is, are the videos posted yet?
They
Or
are not yet. They're
Yeah.
editing them. I'm hoping that they'll all be up before the middle of vacation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's fun.
No, absolutely.
It was all right. It was kind of rambling.
That's okay. I think we were just trying to get a sense of, where's community journalism, and it does seem to me that there should be a way that we can connect the kids who are working on the school paper with what you guys are doing. Because even,
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, particularly if there's a clear separation between the writer and the editor, and so they don't see their job as trying to put together a perfect piece, but instead as you're going to go out and get the news. I think they'd be interested. Because it would give you a chance, and as you say, to cover stories which you can't cover.
Right.
They have media skills, so if you're looking for people to, they can't probably do elaborate things, but make better, do more with the interviews that you get, or do more with video. They have the time.
Yeah.
They have the motivation, and they have the skills. They're really good with video.
Who's the advisor for that?
So there are two people. I'll send you their information. Let me grab you something note or I'll forget. I've actually made a note to myself. It's just thinking because they have a big staff and it's actually too big for them. So they always search around for things to cover, and they end up often just filling it with not just opinion pieces, but kind of fluff.
Yeah.
And I think if they were told,
Sorry.
if they, that's
God,
all
it was
right.
on wheels.
if they could get a list from you guys of here are stories we'd really love covered but we can't cover, and some of them will do a good job, some of them won't do a good job, but I think enough of them would do a good job.
Yeah.
And it could be a formal intern project, but wouldn't need to be, I don't
Right.
think.
And they could maybe run the stuff they report in
Yeah.
the Sagamore, and yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It would also give the paper, being on the paper, not so. Some of the kids who write for the paper I think are really good, and they don't pursue it they don't think about, I can go to journalism school, and I think it's
Right.
because all they see is
The death of.
the death of it, and also the limits of high school journalism. And
Yeah.
I think if they could see it as a part of a larger, the kids who have gone on have done great stuff, and there are kids who have worked for the Tab and then got internships with the Globe, and then have done other
I
things.
had an intern. He was I don't know. I assume he was on the paper. I don't know, but I had him in college. But he was a BHS grad.
Was that
Adam
Adam
Segi.
Segi?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He was awesome.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, he took this class.
Did he?
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed having him, and he's off at Northeast or Northwestern.
Yeah.
He may be about to graduate.
Yeah. I know. Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I think he was a sophomore when I had him.
There's also, I was just thinking about, so Andrew, who's sitting in the front talking about the streets not being
Yeah.
shoveled. It seems like there must be a way to use Twitter to have people. So if your street's not plowed,
Yeah.
part of the problem is just getting information and sharing information. And if there was a way that there were kids who were working as community journalists with their iPhones, you take a picture, you post it somewhere, it gets sent somewhere, so that I mean, that would be a great way for, let's say, for kids who want to make money shoveling.
Yep.
If it's sidewalks, it gets posted somewhere, and then kids who want to could quickly get connected, or it could let the DPW know,
Yep.
here's a street that's not, It
Yeah.
just seems like that would be a great way for kids to get involved in
Yeah.
community journalism.
Mhm.
So also, I'll get you their names, the
Okay.
editors, and I'll mention to them too and see if they're interested. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these kids take it up too, because
Right.
while they're not on the paper, they do seem to be interested in how to use social media in particular
Mhm.
as a way of connecting community and getting things done. So,
Yeah.
so we'll
Great.
see.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
definitely. Well, thanks for having me. It was
No,
cool. It's a great
absolutely.
idea.
Absolutely. Well, we'll
That's
see what comes
good
of it.
class.
This
How
is-
long have you been doing this project or class? Is this
so
a class or is it a project within a class?
it's a project within a class. So the
Okay.
class is it's called Public Speaking and Public Writing, and it's really about how do you write and how do you use your voice and how do you use media tools to advance whatever it is you want to advance.
Mhm.
And it's been pretty abstract up until this year. It's been, pick any issue you want and do some research on it or do a presentation on it. And the idea is just giving them some practice so they can get the skills of public speaking and the skills. But it struck me that this year we could actually try to affect some change. And I feel like I'm just getting started. I think next year it'll go from do the research and write a proposal, which is where we are this year, to do research, write a proposal, and then carry it out.
Yeah.
But so for their senior project is finding out information, meeting people who are in the community, and then thinking about how can you use your skills to actually bring about some change, and then writing a proposal to do that.
Yeah.
So for the last 2 weeks, we've had the police chief has come in, a bunch of people from Brookline Climate Action Committee. We had someone from the food pantry come in, and we had school committee people come in. I'm just trying to think about who else. This afternoon, someone from public housing is coming in. So we've probably about 20 different people who are
that's
going to
great.
come and talk to us, and it's been pretty fascinating. But the thing that we keep coming back to is every single person is saying we need more people to help us do the work.
Yep.
And there's not yet any good link between the work that needs to be done and the people who are running it and the school. Because I think the school's struggling with the question of a lot of what we've been doing with kids is starting to feel more and more relevant.
Mhm.
That we've done a great job of preparing kids to go off to college, and the reality is our kids are going to go to college anyway. I mean, if we just did tap dance for 4 years, for the most part, they're going to go off to schools, and I think they're starting to realize that, and they're also starting to realize that it used to be if you work really, 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 really hard, you have many more opportunities than if you just work sort of.
Yeah.
And now, because things are so darn expensive, I think a lot of kids are saying, well, why is it really worth me killing myself to do this academic work, which isn't that interesting to me, for financial reasons, my options are going to be limited, and it may not make the investment may not be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Which forces us as teachers to say, well, maybe there's other things we could be doing than preparing kids for AP tests,
Right.
which is exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Um,
I wish they'd done that when I was in high school.
Well, we're
but-
just starting to think about it, and I think
Yeah.
the only way it's going to happen is if we establish these community bonds. Because many are just kind of like, okay, what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
Because we were all trained to teach kids how to get ready for the AP exam,
Right.
And I think, just talking to the food bank person yesterday, it was very clear that she had a lot of projects lined up that she needed people to do, and no one to do them. And it didn't require massive amounts of skill, but it required manpower and personal investment.
Mhm.
And we have that.
Yeah.
We have kids who are eager to do something that seems meaningful. So,
Yeah.
and I do think the same thing with journalism. If these kids are all carrying around cell phones, they're incredibly powerful,
Yeah,
right?
right.
They can send pictures anywhere you want,
Yeah.
and they can record things, and they can do interviews, and getting them to see that's
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I will send you the email
Okay.
addresses.
And if there's anything else I can help you with in terms of just names or anything of people,
That'd be great.
Whatever. I don't
Okay.
know what you need, but
I'm not sure what we
anything.
need either. I think it's gonna. Well, I think when they come back from vacation, they're gonna have to really hit the ground with
Yeah.
their projects, and at that point, I think we'll see. Okay, we need to quickly find someone who knows something about this,
Blank. Yeah.
and then we'll send you frantic emails. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Let me just turn off the cameras here. It's been fun to be able to use this space.
That was so cool.
It's